it degrades anything that's of organic nature. Global warming potential of methane is greater than 25 times what it is for carbon, looked at over a 100-year period. That's how all these different numbers are done over a 100-year period. Fortunately, and while many people don't like the incinerator that all our garbage goes to, but from a global warming standpoint, incineration is way, way better than landfilling. You may burn that compound, but in so doing, it's not giving off methane, it gives off carbon dioxide in the process. When you convert the methane into carbon dioxide by burning it in an incinerator, you cut its global warming impact by 95%. There may be other reasons you don't like incinerators, but from a climate standpoint, they are a good thing. I mentioned the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds. When you buy paint, look for something that says low VOC. There's a good reason for that. First of all, it doesn't stink as much, but second of all, it has less of an impact on the atmosphere. Also, some carpeting is low VOC carpeting. When you discard waste, think about how that has an impact. Now, they also took a couple of other things here and stuffed it into Scope 3. Airplane flights, train flights, you use jet fuel, you use diesel fuel, you can take a trip. They stuffed that into Scope 3 because frankly,
Is there like public transport?
It's purchase transport is what they use.
Buses?
Buses also, if you're in a bus, and that also, composting. It produces a small amount of methane. Net impact of composting is a plus in your favor because it digests through what's called anaerobic digestion versus aerobic versus anaerobic. You leave something to decay where air can't get at it, it produces more methane. When you use it through aerobic digestion, like in a composter, that reduces the amount of methane that gets produced. Whenever possible, use low VOC compounds, and here's this magic guy, the carbon offset. What is that all about? Well, Lindsay talked about two things. He talked about renewable energy certificates, and he talked about carbon offsets. These are two ways in which, after you've done everything you can on your own, you can use your financial resources to help somebody else reduce carbon output elsewhere. When you buy green power, the electricity that's produced by wind in upstate New York, only a little bit of it gets to you. But what happens instead is that when you buy renewable energy certificates or green power, which is renewable energy certificates combined with power, is that you are ensuring that 1,000 kilowatt hours of renewable power shunts aside 1,000 kilowatt hours of what would have been brown power. Only a certain amount of electricity goes in and a certain amount comes out of our power grids. It's always the exact same amount. The amount you put in, the amount comes out has to be balanced continuously. If you can help somebody else, like a producer of power from wind, by buying renewable energy credits or green power that have them built in essence what's happening is that 1,000 kilowatt hours of fossil fuel power are not being produced because now you're guaranteeing that 1,000 kilowatt hours of renewable power replaces it. The price for this varies. One thing that may happen in the future, near future, is that the subsidy for this may go down and be reduced. Question? No, okay. Right now, however, renewable energy credits or the upcharge for green power is small. It's about 0.3 to 0.5 cents per kilowatt hour. The rough equivalent is about $20 per ton of carbon. If you buy renewable power, you're paying a little more for it, but you are helping somewhere else that there be a reduction in the amount of fossil fuel that's being burned. That's for electricity. Now for everything else, there's this thing called a carbon offset. And these are two completely separate private exchanges that exist for these. A carbon offset pays for a project not related to power production. For example, in landfills, and again, we no longer have this where we are, but most of the country has landfills. In a landfill, you have a situation where the methane is being produced underground and then seeping out through the actual landfill surface. It is possible to cap a landfill. This is a non-permeable barrier that gets put. Here's all the junk down here. Here's the organic material that's breaking apart and forming methane. You cap it, you put a pipe down the middle. Through a fan, you suck out the methane gas before it can release on its own, and then burn it or use it in some other form like a generator so that it reduces the impact of the methane because it turns it into carbon dioxide, which reduces the impact by 95%. There are so many landfills in this country that have no caps that there is an actual industry to do nothing but cap the landfills. That's what these carbon offsets pay for. They are priced based upon the tons of carbon equivalent that they get rid of, between $7 to $11 per offset. Roughly, these two are about roughly equivalent in the cost to get rid of a ton. It varies based upon markets. When you work through that, that's about 20 tons of carbon equivalent per year for that family, about 20 tons. If you actually work all this out, you'll find that as individuals, we produce roughly 100 times our own weight in carbon each year, just to give you a magnitude, because people don't have a concept of a ton, right? Think 100 times your own weight in carbon. If this family bought renewable energy certificates through a renewable power contract, and they come packaged with it, and they bought offsets to counter the rest of the CO2 that they could not reduce through efficiency and things like that, the cost would be about $18 a month. Let that sink in. For $18 a month, this family could zero out its carbon footprint, because there are many more effective ways to reduce carbon outside your home than there is inside your home. Think about a latte. Latte's like $4 or something like that. For one latte a week, you can zero out your carbon footprint. Well, how do we do that? The cheapest green power, take it from me, I'm in this business, right, is from a company called Constellation Energy. You can go to their website, constellationenergy.com. This is where I buy my electricity. I bought 100% green power for, I don't know, 8, 10 years, something like that. That's where all my electricity is green power. And the upcharge is fairly small. It's about 3 or 4 tenths of a cent per kilowatt hour. And if you want to buy offsets to cover anything other than your electricity, there are a variety of places that do it. I buy mine from TerraPass. It's not the cheapest in the world, but it's the easiest. Very simple. You go to the website. You can buy for a year in advance your carbon offsets. After you've figured out what your carbon is from looking at that website I told you about from EPA, take a look at that. You say 20 tons. Okay, $10 a ton per year. That's total cost of $200 a year. These, I'm not suggesting that you don't do efficiency. Do all the efficiency you can, all the other things you can, but when you get to the point where you can't do anything else, this is the way to zero out your carbon footprint. Put the money where it is more cost effective. These different procedures are watched by an organization called greene.org that makes sure that they are actually doing these programs, that the green power is really there and it's not some sort of scam. So to conclude, in essence, what I'm suggesting is cut your carbon output as much as you can on your own. Do the efficiency. If you can, go to an electric vehicle or a high mileage car. Any of those things you can do on your own, but you're still going to have a chunk of carbon left over. You can help pay others to negate the rest. There's a huge opportunity out there for reducing our carbon footprints by being able to reduce it somewhere else that we cannot directly impact on our own. And that is my presentation. Thank you very much.